Today, we will cover some recent trades. I had a great weekend and made 3 beautiful trades. You'll witness how the engineered liquidity is being designed and all the liquidity pools scattered by millions of stop losses. As a trader, what shall we do? How to manage positions and risks? We have so much to cover. If you're ready, let's start. Welcome our free trading course, all about price action trading strategies and smart money concepts. With this video, I'll cover 3 perfect trades. If you are looking for a structured table of contents, I set it up for you. You can find it on Google Drive or directly from my website, which is in the description. It is important to watch videos in order so you will not miss anything. Okay people, before getting into weekend trades, let us focus on what is happening with Bitcoin. Our 1-hour range is still not broken and we keep accumulating orders. Soon, this will blast to one side very badly, that I can promise you. Check out deviations on the both sides. Right after liquidity sweeps, notice what is keep happening. Price is being pulled back to range EQ, the middle point, which is where the most orders accumulate. This was just a side note for you to keep watching. Let's get into weekend scalps. Okay, on the weekend I mostly combined lower time frames such as hourly charts, 30, 15, 1 minutes or 15, 5, 1 minutes for really quick scalps. If I go after quick scalps, I personally do not have to check every single time frame from weekly. But I have massive experience. I suggest you do a full top-down analysis if possible. You already see this massive imbalance area and right after that a swing failure pattern. And below it you can notice this IC, indecision candlestick, fail to return area. Or the most basic term is order block, which price strongly reacts. With all the inducement and fuel, the price strongly breaks upwards. During the break, I noticed this breaker block zone, which also collides with this nice imbalance. And see what happens here. Another internal liquidity hunt, another internal inducement, which fuels the price. This is where I took the trade, right in this area. Before going to lower time frames, I have to make a clear statement. How do I know price will react here? So simple. I do not know. No one in the world, no traders, knows the future. We are all just two educated guesses. Price can react or ignore the imbalance demand areas and straight fall. This is why I open lower time frames and watch the price action closely. Okay, now in the 5 minutes chart, getting a closer look here. Notice the nice imbalances above, general inefficiency zones, plus the liquidity and relative equal highs are prime target. Anyone who completed my free trading course should see this with a blindfold instantly. Now it is time to deep dive, getting into 1 minute time frame. Notice these perfect equal highs, too good to be true. And notice this market structure break. Okay, take your notebook. This is important. Why this MSB? Look at your far left. There is another MSB. Why don't I use that? Or check this one. Right before my main MSB, another tiny break. It also has an imbalance. Why not this one? The answer is simple. Look at this drill. This is my high time frame poison, point of interest, which price dip drills to 30-minute imbalance and the breaker block area. So, you cannot use every single market structure breaks. Most MSB are fake. You have to select the ones which are at key points. After the main MSB, I noticed this imbalance. Now if you check the Bybit exchange, price drills to this imbalance. On the weekend especially, there are irregularities between exchanges. This is where I take my quick scalp entry, aiming to equal highs above. But Bitcoin betrays me and commits a crime with a single dollar. It does not take out the equal highs, but luckily I manually close this position. While you are scalping 1-minute charts, you have to complete the trade as soon as possible. Price can be quite volatile. Let's get back to the 5-minute chart and learn what happens. Notice my original equal highs are still intact. Moreover, equal highs are getting larger and like a straight line. If you use your Fibonacci tool, it almost touches the OTE zone by an inch. Obviously, it needed another set of micro inducements before the main runner. So if you missed the micro 1-minute entry, here is your second entry chance at the 5-minute chart. See it clearly now? How the price hunts equal highs, downtrend liquidity, and fills the imbalances to the tick. It is magical, right? Let's continue with the second trade. This trade is actually a continuation of the first trade with a reverse mindset. Remember all the liquidity hunted from the previous trade. This downtrend was our target and liquidity hunt. However, it has a new role now. This time it is for inducement. Remember the imbalances. And check this swing failure pattern. Now the price is all filled up here. Our tank is full. For what? Looking for short. Checking possible targets below. Notice this equal lows line and possible runners below. Two giant wicks. My eyes were set to equal lows. Why? Because it is the closest and the most effective target that I can have. Remember, when you are scalping, focus on the closest and the most powerful target possible. End the trade as soon as possible. Okay, at this point, I draw a Fibonacci here. What is this? Yes, ROTE. But why? Because we hunted liquidity at top with a lot of inducement and far runner target below. I have many reasons to short. More simply put, I have more reasons to short than long here now. Notice this internal break area. Price pulls back to the ROTE zone and makes a micro swing failure pattern right here. A reaction to order block, as you can see. Now, you do not have to, but if you draw another inside Fibonacci here, you'll also notice it's the micro OTE. So basically, micro OTE inside macro ROTE. Can you keep up? Sorry, burning some brain cells here, I know. Now, this was the second scalp. Just forget everything that I have said up until now. Focus on two things only. 1. Hunted liquidity and filled imbalances. 2. Forming liquidity and fresh imbalances. Price is just a ball that will keep bouncing between these structures. Let's see another quick scalp just combining 15-minute and 1-minute charts. Notice the swing failure pattern and then how the price sharply breaks upwards. Notice this tiny demand area, breaker block, which collided with imbalance. Okay guys, take notes again. Order blocks, breaker blocks, mitigation blocks. These three blocks have to collide with imbalances to be 10 times more effective. Take note of this, it is extremely important. You can also see the balanced price range here. And below, see what we have. Order block. So what is this? Breaker block, imbalance, order block, balanced price range. four structures collide. This is a zone. Where can I look for a reaction trade in low time frames? Okay, now 1 minute chart at our reaction point. Now pause the video here and identify these. Where is the target? Where is the MSP? What is this total structure called? Paused? Of course not. Guys, this is why you fail. If you do not practice it, you'll never see it by yourself and keep asking me for signals. Okay, see these equal highs here and the imbalance above? Here are my targets. What is this here? Hunt of the micro uptrend liquidity. Now, what is the pattern? Let's see. Yes, it is a micro PO3, power of 3. Notice this MSP here. But why does this market structure break? It fully fills the high time frame imbalance and reacts to order blocks strongly. Now it leaves an imbalance and creates these tiny 1 minute order blocks. Okay guys, here is the problem with weekends. Price action and smart money concepts are a bit off on the weekends. So it is hard to find perfect entries. I enter right after the order block reaction. However, my stop is way below the deep order block body. Why? Price can easily pull back and fill the imbalance. It can even go deeper to the second order block. I caution my stop loss and aim for our regular 2-hour trade. Hope it is all clear now. Okay folks, with this video, we had a deep understanding how the liquidity works and how to manage positions. Very useful methods for day traders and scalpers. I hope you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you, please take care and see you soon.